Hello, warm welcome to this week's episode of Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay and presented from, even by our standards of trying to do incredibly cool stuff, a phenomenally awesome spot to call home this week. This is Sabi Sabi Earth Lodge. It is in the Sabi Sands, and it's famous for many things. It has some of the best wildlife on the continent. People come from all over the world to go on safari here. The rooms, as you'll see, are ridiculous. I bought my golf clubs. I hit an 8-iron from my bed to the bathroom. Now, I'm not the longest hitter, but that's still a decent effort. The food here is terrific. The staff are wonderful. Look up, the general manager's got the coolest moustache probably in the country. But for me, right up there with anything here would be the wine. And so I'm tasting some wine this week with somebody who, according to you, the watchers of Dan Really Likes Wine, I should have done ages ago. Because if we go back about 2-3 months, I did an episode with Jean-Marie de Villiers, the world-famous racing driver. Now, I thought I'd get loads of really excited messages. Dan, thank you for drinking wine with Jean-Marie. Thank you for introducing us to another side of this legendary driver. Not at all. What did you all send me? Abuse. Why did you speak to Jean-Marie when his wife knows more about wine than most people in all of Stellenbosch? Because Mrs. de Villiers is, in fact, somebody who is extremely well acquainted with wine. And so I'm back up in the Sabi Sands. Mr. de Villiers is here. He's out doing handbrake turns on the Sabi Sabi Earth Lodge game drive vehicles to the distress and dismay of Stefan, the general manager. And instead, I've got Jean-Marie with me. And it's an absolute pleasure, because the number of people, Jean-Marie, got hold of me and said, don't talk to Jean-Marie about wine. He'll only drink Rust and Frieda, and that's all he knows about. But Mrs. de Villiers is actually somebody with a rich wine history, and that's correct, because you've been in the wine world for a long time now.
Yes. Basically, all my adult life, studied enology, University of Stellenbosch. Never really went into the winemaking side. Did a short course on marketing and went into retail. So I joined a big retail company as the technical buyer for up to 11 years. And yeah, when I stopped, I thought I'll take just a sabbatical, not a retirement. And then I ended up myself into studying again. I'm doing the WSET, which is the Wine and Spirits Educational Trust, the diploma course, the level 4. It's a 2-year diploma in knowing the wines of the world and in tasting the wines of the world and how to identify the wines of the world.
It's a demanding course. I'm currently in 3, which is way below diploma. So you're kind of in the master's section, and I'm very much the O-week of university. And it's fascinating, but it has to be done by somebody who does have that anorak-like of wine. You've got to be a bit of a wine nerd to enjoy it, and you clearly are.
Yeah. Well, I actually get too little experience at the moment, like not being working with wine anymore. But I actually did my level 3 in 2008, and I'm so glad I left it another 12 years to do the level 4, because it is quite a jump, and I had to learn much about wine, to actually start this. But I'm enjoying it, and I have a very dynamic class, and we learn a lot from each other, and we'll see where this takes me.
You've also very clearly got a deep love for wine, a great passion for it. Where did that come from?
Yeah, interesting, because I grew up on an apple farm, not a wine farm. And I was always into the science side of things. And when I got to university, my mom repeated the story very recently to me, and I actually forgot the detail. I was crying in the first week because I tried to study something like BSc IT, whatever it was, and it didn't work for me after week 1. So I rolled up just for straight BSc, and I just got to know people and spoke to people, and I thought the wine thing sounds interesting. So it kind of happened out of the blue. I am a wine lover since a young age, which is probably when we all start to drink wine, it's actually rather later than the age of 18. We first start off on the arches and lemonade. That's kind of happened out of the blue.
You're also married to somebody who professes to have a love for and a certain knowledge of wine. Had a great chat with Janelle and a couple of bottles, and particularly his Rust and Frieda. Does he drink anything other than that, though? I get the impression that if Jean Engelbrecht hasn't made it and it isn't red, he's not going to drink it.
I promise you, I don't think he'll drink anything else. I've got a nice selection at home, and he's willing to taste, but then he just go and open his reservoir again. And if you catch him with like 2 friends at home on a Saturday afternoon, they literally go through a case of reservoir estates, nothing else.
Well, it is terrific wine from a terrific region, but it's a region that's about more than just the red blends that Jean Engelbrecht makes so well. Is there a particular style of wine, a particular grape that strikes a real chord with you?
Yeah, I'm actually lately quite into the more non-Stellenbosch varieties, but yeah, like the latest trend is to move away from the heavier wines, to use less oak, to go for the more fruitier styles, to actually taste the vine rather than the oak. Yeah, actually, sure.
So if I were to say to you, Janelle's just come back, he's just won the Dakar, and you get to choose the wine to celebrate. So let's go even beyond Stellenbosch, something from somewhere in South Africa.
Yeah, not to talk brands, but I will, if I drink Stellenbosch, I will definitely go in the Bordeaux style of blend direction. Yeah, and there's a whole lot of old vines. That's the old vine, but I don't even know where the Gypsy, the grapes are from, but I know they do some really great old vine, Chenin Blancs from the area, and that's definitely something that excites me. I'm all for aged white wine, especially at this stage of my life. I think it's so much more interesting. We all drink white wine way too young. Yeah, so I think there's some nice blocks that deliver some really good stuff that we can age up to easily 10, 15 years.
Well, of course, you're married to Janelle, which suggests you do like much older whites, but we will leave that particular line for now and try some wine, because I love tasting wine with people who've got such a passion for it. And we've got 3 really interesting ones from the cellar here at Sabi Sabi Earth as guests of Ranger Buck Safaris. Now, and the first of these is a wine that I'm quite interested to get your opinion on, because Sauvignon Blanc has kind of got 2 broad spaces. There's the general public who like it to sit in ice for 4 weeks and then drink it in the heat of summer, and it's got to be freezing and delightful. And then you get those people who are just sick of Sauvignon Blanc. It's all green pepper and acid, and I don't want to drink it ever. I like to think there is a middle ground we can find, and I think somebody like David Niewoudt is the kind of person who finds that middle ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think he opened a lot of doors for many producers in South Africa with his choosing that region to produce wine. I think after that, there was like a whole range of new regions that popped up. So we all realized wine's not only made in Franschhoek and Stellenbosch and Elgin, but yeah, I think David knows what he's doing. I'm a great fan of this wine, even though I don't drink a lot of Sauvignon Blanc lately, but I know it's definitely one of the best. I look forward to taste it now. I haven't had it in at least a year.
Well, let's address that omission to your wine drinking CV. So this is David Niewoudt's Ghost Corner. You remember we had David on the show not that long ago. He's got a really interesting project with Chile as well. Just has a lot of fun making his wine. So here is the Ghost Corner, being drunk with WSET diploma student and wine buyer extraordinaire, Jean-Marie de Villiers. And I think it's just important to note that in terms of South African celebrity, you get a Jean de Villiers, and then a Jean-Marie de Villiers, way cooler and more important. Certainly knows a lot more about wine. Let's give it a crack. I see this has got a Sauvignon Blanc top 10. It's also got a Concours Mondial, so a couple of stickers, which don't always tell the story, but they're often an indication.
So this is, yeah,
This
2019.
is 2019, so it's still fairly young.
Yeah, it's still fairly young, and it's probably one that can easily go up to, yeah, another 10 years. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, aging Sauvignon Blanc, it's something that is, people don't really think of that
People
much,
don't
do
think
they?
of that. I mean, I used to be part of this race of having the first, the first bottle on the shelf of the vintage. And yeah, there's no really logic behind it.
I know. Well, we're currently sitting, this is the end of November 2020. I think the Diemersdal 2021's already out, actually. All right, well, cheers.
Cheers,
Great
yeah.
to have some wine with you. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah, so can I give you my opinion?
Please do.
What I've learned over my, call it a career of wine, specifically about Sauvignon Blanc, is to basically get that balance between the yeah, it's now I must focus on my English. The pyracines and the thiols, which is the tropical fruit side of flavors and the green grassy side, as you explained. And to have that combination is basically, I think, what some winemakers go for. Not all of them, but what I've learned and out of my experience is then you basically hit the spots. And I think this is definitely doing that.
Yeah, we talk a lot on this show about the best wines being those wines that achieve a sense of balance. And Sauvignon Blanc as a wine is prone to not finding that balance. It can, in some styles, be just that too much acidic, be a little bit too green. And I think this is great. Now, I can actually picture myself sitting on a Sabi Sabi Earth game drive vehicle as elephants leapfrog over each other and rhino are juggling in the background. The sun setting, and it's got just that little bit more to it. There is a bit of structure to it. It's going to wash down the. I think they do crayfish when you go out in the evenings with this, and it's just a perfect way to end a day.
Yeah, a lot of like green characteristics, but you get that passion fruits and like they say Cape gooseberry.
Yeah.
In Europe, it's something else, gooseberry. So we say Cape gooseberry, and yeah, that's really nice combination.
It is really good. I'd love to drink this in another 2 or 3 years, though. I think it's just going to fine. You can see, if you look at the colour, that's basically an English tourist on safari on day one. It's completely white, but it's going to age up really nicely. Right, so this, I think of people like the Joburg foodie, Joburg's top food critic, or certainly most prolific, who hates Sauvignon Blanc. This might be something that changes him around. It's also, though, and we spoke about it at the start, it's the white wine that most South Africans drink. It's your entry level, it's your drink of summer. And I love trying to get people who only drink Sauvignon Blanc to drink something else. The hardest one to get them onto is generally Chardonnay. Because people remember eating a piece of wood from Chardonnay made 10 years ago. So we've got a Chardonnay here that I hope will help to do that difference. It's the Jordan 9 Yards, and it's an estate I'm sure you'll know pretty well. It is your part of the world, and it's an estate that not just making great wine, but also really dynamic in terms of what they do as an estate with their restaurants, with their approach to wine, the projects they've got going in the UK. It's a really exciting space, Jordan.
Absolutely. It's and yeah, like I've said, in my experience, Gary Jordan has put a lot into educating us youngsters about wine and specifically about South African wines. And yeah, so I've learned a lot from him, even though he probably doesn't even know it. But yeah, we admire his brand, his wines, and obviously his Chardonnay, which is one of our best. And I always think, so if you talk about Chardonnay, South Africa, the Hemel and Ader Valley are quite famous for it. And as you move closer to Chardonnay, the Stellenbosch, the style changed, and then it stops at Jordan. And yeah, so then you get the Stellenbosch Chardonnay. So he's definitely to me, in my eyes, almost the gateway to the Stellenbosch Chardonnay.
I remember Mike Ratcliffe saying online probably earlier this year, he felt the next big story out of wine in Stellenbosch was going to be Chardonnay. Is that a fair assessment for you?
Possibly.
Yeah.
But like Chardonnay's, the unwooded style has become more trendy lately, or less wooded, and to rather use older oak barrels.
Well,
yeah,
so the jury is out.
Yeah, so it's a white wine probably.
All right, well, let's see if we can nudge you into Mike Ratcliffe's philosophy. This is the 9 Yards from 2016, so a little older. And again, Chardonnay, it's just it's almost criminal to drink great Chardonnay as soon as we so often do in South Africa, because in that first year or two, it's barely walking, let alone finding its feet and developing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, especially as Chardonnay is made in this style. I mean, you can see from the color, it's spent some time in barrel. This is a 2016, so age also contributes. Chardonnay doesn't always have the acidity like the Sauvignon Blancs or the Chenin's, but if you mature it correctly, it can really become into something incredible. Actually, now that you mentioned your friend's opinion, a friend of mine recently posted on a Chardonnay of Stellenbosch, the heart of Stellenbosch, and said and she's quite knowledgeable. She said it's the best Chardonnay she's had in South Africa.
Really?
Yeah, so you might be right.
Oh, people in the Hemel and Ader Valley jumping up and down in protest at the moment. Oh. Oh. It's what throwing the wood out the window to a large extent has done, and not necessarily going unwooded, but just dropping down the wood. You're suddenly allowing the fruit to tell its own story and to give you wine on the wine's terms as opposed to the barrel's terms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this wine you can tell. I mean, it's spent some time in bottle. It's almost like the wine settles in a way. It integrates. So, I mean, I get a lot of pear and obviously the citrus fruits in this wine, and also there's an extra layer of honey and beeswax, and which is makes this style of Chardonnay, which has to be at least 5 years old, by the way, when you drink it, it makes it so interesting, and actually quite a lot to talk about. And I always think we should choose wines that we can talk about.
We have a lot of people who watch this show who are just learning about wine, and some of the things are completely unknown to them, and that's entirely as it should be, because it's a journey for all of us, no matter where we stand. You mentioned a little while ago you've got that style changing. For somebody who doesn't really know what those styles are, if you take the general characteristic of a Hamel-Larned Chardonnay, and then you take the general characteristic of a Stellenbosch Chardonnay, and this in particular, what are we looking at as the key differences?
Yeah, so Hamel-Larned, which is a cooler climate, is, I mean, I'm talking in general now, is basically a leaner, maybe more acidic, just more fresher and leaner, mineral in terms of characteristics, where the Stellenbosch wines get more fuller, fatter, rather brioche, buttery, even though you give them the same oak exposure. It's just like a fuller, fatter, fruitier style, less lean, less mineral.
I'm always remembered, particularly with a Stellenbosch Chardonnay, a warmer Chardonnay, when it gets a couple of years older, of walking into bakeries at sort of 4 in the morning when they're just getting going. When I've been on my way home from a very important meeting, and you get that lovely sense of croissants and that richness, and it really does come through. I think it's a nice. terrific wine, and I think we'll be pairing the rest of it with some food here at Sabi Sabi a little later on. We have 2 white wines. We then have a red to wrap up with, and it's a really interesting choice that we've got here. A red wine, you come up to a game lodge like this during the day, you probably want some white wine, but by the time it gets to evening, there's usually lots of red meat, there's a big fire, but you don't always want something that's super heavy, and so I think this is a really interesting one, and it's one that a lot of people sidestep a bit, because the moment you say Ken Forrester, everyone, oh, Chenin Blanc, I must drink the FMC or some old vine. And we kind of forget that as good as Ken is at making Chenin Blanc, he does have a very diverse ability when it comes to making wine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I recognize the label now. I had to take a peek at the back label to know exactly what it is, but I kind of guessed it's a Grenache, because in terms of red, I think that is his strong point. I think I don't know where these grapes are from. Most Stellenbosch doesn't have a lot of Grenache. These are old vines. They're like 50 years old. So I'm super excited to taste the wine in a couple of seconds. I think you can pour so long.
Well, I think all of this is actually from Ken.
From his estate.
From his estate.
That's amazing, because back in the days they just pulled out all the Grenache.
But Ken's the kind of guy, if you say, Ken, you cannot make Malbec on your estate, he'll go and plant 3 hectares the next morning. It's exactly what he did with Mourvedre, and he's clearly doing the same here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think the grape suits the region. It's just a matter of there's very few vineyards at the moment. There's some planted, but so I'm really stoked to see there's 50-year-old Grenache vines in and around Stellenbosch.
Just before we try it, this is 2015. The moment you say 2015 in Stellenbosch and Cab, everybody goes berserk. Bordeaux blend, they go almost as crazy. What about other reds? What about a 2015 that's made from Syrah and Grenache?
I know for a fact 2015 has been a great year overall, especially in Stellenbosch. So I think, it will probably goes for this one as well. People really get excited. I used to spend time with Jan Boerland, Gypsy, a lot, and he liked to say, I mean, it's not a fact, but he liked to say the good vintages comes in 5 years, 2000, 2015, and you can go back like that. So, yeah, according to him, definitely 2015 has been a great year overall.
Right. Interesting, I think a lot of guys are saying 2017 is starting to possibly even
Yeah.
outshine 2015, just taking a little longer to get there. And the things I've heard about 2020's vintages have been enormously encouraging. But let's go back to 2015. Let's try the man who looks like a department store Father Christmas, Mr. Ken Forrester. And there is something to be said about the simplicity, and in this case, the elegance of wine that's just two. It's not complicated. We haven't thrown 11 different varietals in. He's just gone with 2, and he's worked them together so beautifully. It's a seamless blend.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we all know, the French love to blend these two varieties together, and yeah, they really go well together. It's just nice to see how the Syrah adds a bit of weight to the Grenache, and the Grenache comes with these pure red fruits, and yeah, then some spiciness, and yeah, I think it's a beautiful wine.
Great.
It's definitely entering its drinking period now.
Definitely. And you're right, what one is lacking, the other one adds, and
Yeah,
vice versa.
absolutely. Beautiful blend.
All right, well done, Mr. Forrester. You got thumbs up from one of Stellenbosch's finer palates. We need to go and head off on safari and go and see the penguins and the other highlights of Sabi Sands that we've been promised here at Earth Lodge. Before we do that, though, Stellenbosch is home, wine is your passion. Somebody who's planning to head down to Stellenbosch, or perhaps lives in the Cape and is looking to head out, give us a secret spot, a place that maybe not too many people know of, to go and try some wine, take in the view, meet a great winemaker, somewhere that you feel deserves a thumbs up from you that's maybe not quite so well known.
Do those places exist in Stellenbosch?
And if they do, are you going to tell them about them? Tell us about them or keep them secret?
Cheers. Yeah, I mean, my wine friends, a lot of them make wine from Stellenbosch vineyards, and they're not really seen as Stellenbosch farms, you know, like the Concurs or the Rasenfeerders, but they really make amazing wines from the region with kind of a modern edge to the wines. Like, for example, Erika Obermeier.
Like she needs an introduction. The woman's a genius.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, yeah, now I'm just, you know, if you put me on a spot, then just...
Well, look, Eric is a great start, but how about this for a way forward? It's been fabulous drinking wine with you, but we're very far from home. We're in a very, very welcome alternative home here at Earth Lodge, but I'll come down to Stellenbosch, we'll grab Janelle, we'll go out, do a bit of exploring. You can introduce me to some of your winemaking friends and meet some of those wines that are maybe not so well known but deserve to be celebrated in Stellenbosch.
Absolutely, I'd love that.
Fantastic. Jean-Marie, thank you so much. It's been a delight. Good luck with the diploma. It's not an easy course, but I suspect that you'll waltz through it quite comfortably. Looking forward to enjoying some more wine with you over the next couple of days. And thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Dan.
We've shared some wine from the cellar here at Earth Lodge, the Sabi Sabi Earth Lodge. It's an extraordinary place to come and visit. Loads and loads of attractions, but for me, the cellar is right up there with them. We've tried some Sauvignon Blanc from David Niewoudt. We've tried some of Gary's 9 Yards from Jordan, the Chardonnay, and wrapping up with some of Ken Forrester's Gypsy. But these are just 3 of a whole range of wine in a cellar that's won many accolades over the years, and rightly so. I suspect that Jean-Marie, myself, and the rest of our guests here this weekend will be trying out a couple more bottles from that cellar and enjoying what we all know to be true, and that is that South Africa makes some of the finest wine in the world. A big thank you to Ranger Buck Safaris for having us here this weekend, and to Sabi Sabi Earth Lodge for the fabulous hospitality and, more importantly, some quite wonderful wine. Cheers.
Cheers.